As we mentioned, it was 25 years ago tomorrow that Los Angeles erupted in riots. 25 years. But for many in the city, it feels like it was just yesterday. Eric Garcetti is the current mayor of Los Angeles, and he joins us now. Mayor, thank you so much for your time. If you could,
great to be with you, Don.
Start by telling us about the city as it was then and how it has changed.
Well, Los Angeles in 1992 was a different place. It was a much more segregated city. It was a place which I think people felt more disconnected from each other. And our police department was not necessarily reflective of the diversity of our city. Felt disconnected in too many places and with too many incidents from the very people they were charged to serve and protect, as we saw, so apparently in the Rodney King beating. This is something that happened long before there were cell phone cameras, but it was in some ways a preview of coming attractions for the entire nation. We just went through it a couple decades early.
I think there were so many people. This was one of the first events of this kind that was captured on live TV. Many of the images are indelible, including the truck driver being dragged out of the truck and beaten. It was such a violent time and number of days there. Do you remember what you were thinking at the time? Do you remember being shocked that your city could descend into something like this?
Absolutely. I couldn't believe this city that I loved, this kind of imperfect paradise called Los Angeles, where every day is 72 and sunny and where it seemed like opportunity was endless, suddenly was erupting in flames. And it wasn't contained to one neighborhood. It was spreading to all sorts of parts of the city. And I think it was the frustration of a moment in which people felt both helpless and hopeless. Helpless because their voice hadn't been heard, and hopeless because they didn't know if there were opportunities for them. But it was a giant wake-up call. The loss of lives that we remember 25 years later, first of all. We have to pause to remember those who died. But we also learned deep, deep lessons, went through the trauma of that moment to come out a better, a more resilient, a stronger city ready to lead again as we are today.
Yeah, the violence was just shocking, but was shocking and disappointing too were the number of people who were hurt by all the looting and all the fires and the damage. Many of them were small business owners who didn't recover from that experience. And one of the things that I've read recently is that there have been some surveys done about whether Los Angelinos think that this could happen again, and a majority say yes, they fear that they could have riots like this. Do you agree? Do you fear that something like this could be possible today?
Well, I think any city in America can erupt. Violence happens spontaneously, quickly, and when it happens, there's almost nothing you can do about it if it explodes like that. But I think what you can do in the meantime is to change the systems, vent the feelings, make people know that when mistakes are made, and mistakes will be made by human beings, that there's accountability and that there's progress. I think here in Los Angeles, we've seen, for instance, in other surveys, the trust between the community and the police department is much stronger because the police department now reflects the demographics of this city. We have a police commission, an independent inspector general who can investigate incidents, and I think there's more accountability. We are never perfect, but I would say we're maybe halfway up the mountain, no longer at the base of it, looking up at the peak, but we can look up and still see there's a way to go. We're still vulnerable, and that's why you have to keep improving every day.
I remember that there was a lot of self-reflection by the LAPD as well as the mayor's office in light of these riots. What were the main things that you think came from all of that reflection? And did it have to go back to the systematic roots of how the LAPD conducted itself?
I think that was a big part of it. I think the superficial call right after the riots, hey, can't we all get along? What Rodney King said, and people figured, oh, if we could just get Koreans and African Americans and Latinos to understand each other, this could never happen again. We all realized that was superficial. That wouldn't lead to real lasting change. We had to find projects to rebuild our city together. We had to bring people across geography and ethnicity together to work on creating more jobs or making sure that there was opportunities to get rid of gang crime together. That's the only lasting work, and ultimately the reform of the police department. We've got amazing police officers here. We had back then, and a lot of heroism, but we had too many disconnects where there was not accountability for those officers that would break the law, would do things like we saw to Mr. King. And ultimately, it took the federal consent decree where the federal government came in, took over our police department, but we came out of it much better. We're now seen by the federal government not as a department to take over, but as a model that's highlighted, for instance, in President Obama's State of the Union just a couple of years ago.
I'm sensing some optimism on your part.
Absolutely. You know, I wake up cautious every day, never patting ourselves on the back that we're finished with our work. But this is a place now where, you know, in every neighborhood you see every ethnicity. In this whole town, people see, I think, a connection to police, that even when something bad happens, that there is a system to be able to make sure people are held accountable. One of the first cities in the country to have body cameras on our police officers. We have, you know, thousands of kids who participate in our cadet programs and become police officers. That's a radical change from where we were in 1992. So I am hopeful, not only for Los Angeles, but that Los Angeles can help teach Ferguson and other parts of the country struggling with these issues for the first time, the lessons of what we learned.
Through a painful past, indeed. Eric Garcetti, Mayor of Los Angeles,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to be with you.